I honestly could not think of a funnier joke than what I saw on Letterboxd when looking up reviews for this movie. So from the user Jordan Beaumont Anderson, mildly upset Max. Yeah, that's the joke, folks. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam and welcome back to my Road to the Horizon, where I'm going to be covering all three of Kevin Costner's directorial efforts in honor of Horizon, an American Saga Chapter 1, coming to theaters in just a couple of weeks. I've already covered Dances with Wolves, thank you to everyone who showed love to that video, but it is linked in the eye in the right-hand corner if you have not seen it. Go check it out for yourself. But for right now, we go from the penthouse to the outhouse. It's time to talk about the Postman.
There's gonna be new laws! There's gonna be peace!
Man was released in 1997 and starred Kevin Costner as well as Lorenz Tate, Will Patton, and Olivia Williams, among others. It is based on the book of the same name written by Michael Bryn, and it tells the story of, well, a man played by Kevin Costner who is given at first the derogatory name of Shakespeare. The year is 2013. Lol. The Earth is pretty much a wasteland. Double lol. Then known as Shakespeare travels from town to town, basically living with himself and his horse, while putting on Shakespeare for whatever townspeople he can find. But he is soon swept up by the Holnist army led by General Bethlehem, played by Will Patton. They are not good dudes, and they run a very militaristic and air quotes disciplined society, which involves never crossing the general and following a very strict set of rules. Nothing can go wrong with this equation until it does. But Shakespeare escapes and takes on a new alias, the Postman, posing as a postal worker for the air quotes reformed United States of America, and in turn brings hope to an otherwise hopeless world, much to General Bethlehem's chagrin. Like I touched on in the Dances with Wolves video, Kevin Costner was on top of the world from the late 80s to about the mid-90s. He was making all kinds of money at the box office. He was getting accolades left and right. Dances with Wolves was the best picture of 1990 at the Academy Awards, like I mentioned. He himself won the Oscar for Best Director. Kevin Costner had a license to print money, and he could do no wrong. Until the mid-90s happened. Now, I'm not going to touch on Waterworld any more than I have to, because that is for another video. But Waterworld, at the time, was seen as the biggest box office flop ever. It was like 2023 levels of flockbuster territory. The only thing that saved the movie was the theme park ride at Universal and home media sales. Otherwise, it would have been completely written off as an abject failure. But that did not deter Kevin Costner from wanting to return to the director's chair and adapting The Postman, the book, written by Michael Bryn. Bryn himself actually said that if he had to have anyone star as the main character of a movie based on his book, it would have been Kevin Costner. Postman is seen largely as a failure, not just critically, but financially. This movie grossed about $30 million on an $80 million budget. Yeah, that's pretty bad, that, no matter what decade or context you look at it. That is a box office failure, full stop. Not even releasing this movie at Christmas time in 1997, when I, as someone who has worked several Christmases at a movie theater, can tell you everyone and their dog and cat go to the movie theater on Christmas Day. It's just the thing you do. It also did not help things that a little movie called Titanic was kicking things off in the box office, making all of the money, and it would eventually win all of the awards. So yeah, the writing was on the wall, and if the writing wasn't written clearly enough, it was replaced by a slapped-on neon sign. This was a failure by all accounts. But I went into it with an open mind, like I do for every movie that I review. Despite all the joke reviews, Gene Siskel legendarily calling this Dances with Myself, I went into it with as open a mind as possible. And this thing is not good. Let me just start off by saying that I don't hate this movie. I like the ideas presented more than the actual meat of the matter, if that makes any sense at all. I think conceptually, this is a really interesting story about a learned man who brings knowledge to an otherwise hopeless world, and the more barbaric sections of that hopeless world hating it and trying to stamp it out. I think that there is something that could be done with that. Something like that was done with that in 2010 with a little movie called The Book of Eli, directed by the Hughes brothers. If you have not seen that movie, I recommend it highly. It is mad underrated. There's just one tiny problem with this movie. Well, one of many. It's the fact that this is a big old celebration of Kevin Costner and Kevin Costner alone. I think the word vanity project is just a buzzword, and I try not to use it if I can help it. But this is Kevin Costner basically like doing Kevin Costner fan fiction. He is the main character, the top baby face, the number one hero, but turns it up to like 12. He has a false modesty about his character. Some of the things that his character does is just ridiculous. There is a storyline where he and Olivia Williams' character get together only because Olivia Williams approaches the postman to have her baby. To make the long story short, Olivia Williams' character's husband cannot reproduce because he got the mumps when he was 12. So that basically makes him impotent. To mention the fact that Kevin Costner kind of played into his like uglier side of his acting, the more boring rather than stoic side of acting. He's not even that particularly interesting. The first scene we see him in, he's in this gas station and he's talking to his horse like, "Hey, we got TV." I'm like, "Yeah, that TV probably is not gonna work." Not to mention these a few edit that. Not to mention a few silly scenes that just make you go, yeah, that's definitely ego right there. Probably the biggest example is this one scene that could have been completely cut out of the movie, but the postman is riding along past this house, and this little boy has this letter that the postman wants to take. But the postman rides away, not seeing him initially, and the boy's like, I missed him. But then, like that one WWF commercial where the little boy yells, Brett! At the top of his lungs, and Bret Hart turns around and gives the kid his sunglasses. The postman turns around, rides back, and then grasps the letter out of the waiting child's arms to have it delivered. And then at the very end of the movie, that moment is immortalized in a bronze statue. Play the clip.
Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
And I like Kevin Costner as an actor, but I just had that clip on loop in my head throughout the entirety of this. Patton is good in his role, but really this character is kind of boring too, like boring in his delivery. I feel like you could do a lot with this character. It's learned in the movie that before the apocalypse, he was a copy machine salesman and basically took it upon himself to be the leader of this new society, like the Immortan Joe of this world for a comparison. But he talks about how tough he is and how wise he is, and he has a flair for the dramatic when you don't see that flair of the dramatic at all. I'm not asking for a Lord Humongous, leave the fuel and I will spare your lives. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that there is a middle ground in between Dennis Hopper and Waterworld and this, like, just piece of wood. Like, there's a middle ground there. The cherry on top of the cake, there is a line of throwaway dialogue in which one of the prisoners, when General Bethlehem is walking away, context, the rules of this society have been explained. There are eight of them. Or yeah, no, I know how to do math. Eight of them. And one of the prisoners says, the last dude that challenged Bethlehem for the clan is now his second in command. Bethlehem cut out his tongue and then cut his balls off. And I just had to go, I'm sorry, but if that actually happened to the second in command, then Diet Off-Brand, non-union, legally distinct John Rhys Davies should be dead. Olivia Williams is the best thing in this movie by quite a bit. She is the most interesting character, and I wanted to see more with her. And to be perfectly honest, like I said, there's a good idea here with the reestablishment of the Postal Service. I wanted to see more of that. But I feel like there was just not really much done with it. You see them go off on rides and routes that they do. You see post office being built, but I don't know. It just felt more like a Cold War than an actual war, and it doesn't help the fact that this movie is 3 entire human hours long. In my Dances with Wolves video, I said that the you can cut off about 15 minutes and the movie would have been a perfect runtime. Runtimes don't bother me. They did here. There are several montages that are in slow motion. There's not a ton of battle sequences. There's an entire 20 minutes dedicated to the postman and Olivia Williams' character in this cabin bickering. Well, not bickering, but kind of fighting because Postman got shot in a battle and it turned into a whole situation, and it's not really that remotely interesting. This feels very much like the bizarro mirror dimension version of Waterworld, and I promised I wouldn't compare it to Waterworld, but in this context, I really can't help myself. Waterworld is like the complete opposite of The Postman in every sense, because Waterworld is a dumb movie. Let's not get that twisted. But Waterworld is entertaining. It's got great music. It's got great battle sequences. Kevin Costner bought like half the steel in Hawaii to build the sets for that movie. Or well, Kevin Reynolds was the director, but regardless, Kevin Costner produced it. So Waterworld feels very genuinely like a unique diamond of cinema that just people just kind of slept on and just it underperformed. The Postman is so serious about itself that it just forgets to be fun. The most thrilling things in this movie are one battle sequence in the middle of the movie and one at the very end. And it all begins at the end. The ending battle sequence begins where Tom Petty, who cameos in this movie, sends the Postman down this like not sled, but like a ski lift of some kind. And then Postman and Bethlehem have a fist fight. And that admittedly was pretty good, but you gotta sludge through a lot to get there. At the end of the day, this movie's not the worst, but it is pretty forgettable. It feels like there was effort put forth into this. Maybe a little too much effort. I feel like, and again, I'm not saying this should have been a comedy. I'm just saying that you could have like lightened it up a little bit. You just felt so much like we need to take this matter very seriously. This is a very serious matter that requires serious men who have serious like senses of self. And it's just like, no, it didn't need to be like that. But what did you all think of The Postman? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. And I will be concluding my road to the horizon with a look at Kevin Costner's, well, up to this point, his final directorial effort, 2003's Open Range. But if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.